Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chris and Andre Show.
Well, everybody, hi. Welcome to the Chris and Andre Show. It's been crazy. My dude's moved away. I've been kind of like swamped with the work, and it's been, whoo. Yeah, so we're glad you joined us, and we are not out of the game. We're just kind of swamped. So
just slow out of the gate.
Yeah. So thank God we're not getting paid for this
because we'd be waiting on some checks. Like,
yeah,
we'd be waiting a while at this point.
Yeah. we've got 2 episodes that we're probably just gonna get them out like as quickly as possible. But we're super glad you joined us. We're still here. I looked at the stats recently. We've been still getting people to listen to our SoundCloud, and people peeking at YouTube. So thank you very much. I didn't look at any. Did not look at any other places, but I really do appreciate it. So
yeah, absolutely. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you smash that like button. Like just once, but do it extra hard so they know that you like it. Also subscribe, leave a comment, tell us what your favorite part is. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
All of those things help us.
Yeah. All the good things. So if we had any more, let's just do that. Let's just be our friends. We'll be your friend-ish, and it'll work out.
You follow us, we'll follow you. Not in like a creepy stalker way. Only on social media. Maybe you'll get a shout out on the podcast. I don't know.
Yeah, well, speaking of which, let's talk about a little bit of that.
Okay, so I don't know what section would this go under. Like a business.
It says social media.
Social media. Okay, that works. Social media. So yeah, we also now have sound effects for those of you paying attention at home. So yeah, previously I think in a business segment, we had talked about ethics and marketing, and I had brought up this podcast that I listen to regularly. I'm a big fan, but they were doing this thing where they were basically soliciting mailbag questions through 5-star Apple Podcast reviews. So if you wanted to get a question on the show, you just go onto Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review with your question in the review. So at first I was kind of like, that seems kind of like cheating. In a way, I'm also just kind of jealous that I didn't think of it before. You do still need like a decent following, obviously, in order to be able to really make that happen, or really to have any effect. But I started thinking about it recently, and I'm like, they seem to read just any question that comes in. If you write a 5-star Apple Podcast review, they will read the question. And so I'm like, okay, what if I write a question that also includes a plug for my podcast? Why not? And so for those of you that listen to the Pick 6 podcast, CBS Sports, this last week, I'm tuning in. I've been listening like every week when they do their mailbag, because they don't tell you like when they're going to read it, if they're going to read it. Right. And so I kept reading and reading, listening and listening, waiting to see if it was going to happen. And after like 2 weeks, I'd kind of given up. And then this week, I see the mailbag, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to listen to it. And I'm driving around, and I get like 20 minutes into the podcast, and they're on to the second question, and I start hearing the question, and I'm like, wait, this sounds familiar. And as soon as I heard I'm an NC State fan, I'm like, oh my God, they're reading my question. And then it's like that tense moment where I'm like, oh, at the end of this paragraph comes the plug for the podcast. Are they actually? And they read the whole thing. And I mean, like, you could ask Helena. We were in the car together, and I'm like, oh my God, and she's like, what, and I'm like, they're plugging the Chris and Andre show, and she's like, okay, Dad, like, chill
Calm
out.
down.
Trying to play some Pokemon here. But yeah, so like, he read it and was like, because I basically was like, by the way, if you give a shout out to the Chris and Andre show, I'd really appreciate it. And he was like, well, there you go. You write a 5-star review, you get a shout out. So shout out to the Chris and Andre show. And I was like, and I don't know. I mean, it's, again, I think I pointed out, like, I don't think it's really made much of a difference in terms of subscribers or listeners or anything like that. But fun nonetheless. Maybe I'll write another 5-star review. See if I can get another plug. I wonder if it's going to be one of those things where now, like, other people start, plugging their businesses. And so they're like, come on. Like, am I the asshole now that opened the floodgate?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's kind of cool. I mean, when you shared that with me, I was pretty excited. So that was pretty dope. Well, let's talk about some cooking. Cooking.
I'm going to do that every time. Just so you know.
I'm pretty sure you are.
Oh.
Well, yeah. You mentioned...
I'm leading this one off, too. Okay, so... for, again, those of you following along at home, I am in a new location. I am set up shop at the U.S. headquarters for my company, which happens to be where I am now living, down at the beach. So,
but you're not living in your company.
No,
you're not living at the U.S. headquarters.
No, that's why. I mean, you can't see the cot, but that's just for nap time. No, right now staying with my parents while we finish our house renovations down here. Got sheetrock going up today.
Cool.
So that was exciting. Starting to see it kind of come together. But yeah, so while we're down here, my parents are currently in Portugal for like 2.5 weeks. And so we're crashing at their place. And my mom has this fantastic 36-inch gas range with an electric oven. And it might be bigger than 36. I can't remember. But it's like one of the commercial grade ones.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like a real commercial.
Yeah, it's lovely. And she's got one of the flat top, like griddle kind of things on the side. And so I did a couple of Impossible burgers for me and Christy last night on the flat top. It was some soy sauce and a little bit of garlic salt and some pepper. And just, got the thing really hot. So I got a really good sear on the outside of them with some roasted garlic broccoli, which just also really good. But man. I know. Like, I'm making myself hungry right now. I didn't eat before again, but
that makes two of us. So that's good. Like, I haven't had anything that's been like phenomenal lately. Since I got back from Puerto Rico. I was thinking about Peru for other reasons, like Peru. But I've been eating ceviche a lot. To be honest with you, because I just can't. That's like something
you had it while you were in Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah. So I was like, that's a ticket. There's no substitute for this. And other than that, everything else has been just about the same. With work, we've been trying not to eat out a lot. So, for example, like my daughter graduated last week. Mm-hmm. It was really weird, but she likes to go to Chili's, so I took her brothers, and my wife. So, like, all of the kids except for one son who moved to California had a Caesar salad. I was like, this is so normal, like I want something like cool to eat. Like, I haven't had anything cool to eat in a while. I'm like so mad. I'm like, I haven't been cooking. I mean, it's been like really, just been real busy. I've got a couple projects that are just like blowing my mind. But anyway, that's all I got on food. I'm eating normal stuff.
I've talked about it several times on the podcast before, but Panacea Brewing Company, my new all-time favorite restaurant, fully vegan menu. They will be catering our wedding, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, they have. I sent you a picture the last time I was there, but I got it again when we were there on Sunday. The riblet hoagie that they have. That's basically a certain company's rib sandwich that they like to take away and bring back. but it's all vegan, and they use a combination of jackfruit and Impossible meat to make the patty. So it's not
really?
just one, because jackfruit's one of those things where like people are like, oh, it's just like pulled pork, and I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. Like it's not. There's just something about it that I'm like, and so when I saw it on the menu and I was like, ooh, but they mixed it with the Impossible meat, like that sounds really interesting, and it is like the texture. I mean,
that makes a lot of sense.
Homemade pickles on it, and onions and barbecue sauce, and it's just like, oh my god, that thing is so good.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
we had that. My mom made this really good, like, just vegan tomato-based pasta sauce. It was like just super fresh, like, I don't know, we made like a bunch of Parmesan cheese and.
Yeah, fresh sauce is the way to go when it comes to Italian food. Like, I think that makes the whole meal better. So I'm a big fan of that. I think it's just like the whole work thing. And I messed up my shoulders a few weeks ago working out, and it really hurts. Like it just I'm trying to.
Shoulder injuries are no joke. I mean, you don't even realize like some of the motions that you do that you rely on your shoulder for until you've injured one, and you're like, oh my god, that hurts so bad.
Dude, yeah. Monday, I was getting ready. I was putting a shirt on, and as I was putting the shirt on, my arm got stuck inside the sleeve, and it just yanked my shoulder back. Ooh. And I screamed like I was a 3-year-old. And I buckled down, and like it was really bad. So ouch. I know I definitely messed something up there. So we'll see.
I got somebody who wants to come say hi real quick.
Okay.
Come on in.
Hey, buddy. Hi. Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi.
How are you?
I can hear you. Good.
Oh, man. So how do you like the beach?
It's great.
It's great?
Go to summer camp at Island Dive.
Wow. That sounds like a lot of fun. So what else is going on?
I'm at my grandma's office. I was watching some videos.
Really? Okay. Okay. That's all I got. Well, it's really good seeing you. Okay. Okay. All right, sweetie. Well, let me talk to your dad, okay? It's good seeing you. Bye. And Chris is being a parent right now. You gotta love that.
But be good. No more interruptions. Nothing like a little bribery when it comes to parenting.
Man. Yeah. So one thing I've been watching lately is like my wife says that when she watched the video, she's like, "You're always looking at your screen and look at the camera." I'm like, so I've been trying to now I consciously try to look at the camera. And I'm like, gosh, man, now I've got that in my head.
What I think we should do is we should have, like, I'll have the camera on this side of me. You have the camera on this side, right? And we'll both look at the screen so it looks, and then we'll have it so that it looks like we're facing each other in the video. I just feel like, no, you're full of crap. Like,
that would be
a whole new dynamic to the whole.
So let's talk about sports.
Where's sports? Sports isn't in here.
It's here. It's
no,
there.
I don't see sports. It's hiding.
Oh.
Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. We have a momentary. There's a injured player on the field.
And he went to NC State.
Hey. If he went to NC State, he would have gotten injured before he got on the field.
Or he would have never made it to school. Oh man, that's funny.
Sports.
So speaking of NC State,
Yeah. Look, it's not often that I get to celebrate something done by a Wolfpack team, right? And baseball is one of those sports where, as much as I think NC State fans enjoy it, the administration and like the sports department has done very little to really invest in the actual like facilities or anything like that. And so
Right.
Elliot Avent, the head coach there, typically gets a bunch of crap for underperforming or having off seasons, but he's been to 2 College World Series now in the last 8 years. And I don't know, I watched a good bit of I did not watch much of Friday's game when they got crushed like 21-2. And I will say that at that point I had pretty much kind of written them off. But when they came back to play on Saturday, I was like, I'm going to watch some of this.
right?
And it was a pretty good start, and then they started like going downhill, and my mom was like, we got to turn this off. Like, we're the reason they're losing. And they ended up hanging on to win, which was great. So we were like, well, obviously we can't tune in on Sunday to see. But I was like, I kept watching the highlights and stuff like that, or watching the score updates on ESPN. And so when I finally saw that they won, I was like, holy crap. But yeah, it was awesome. I was like very, very proud of the team. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens from this point on. Like, there's still a bunch of really good teams left, but Arkansas was supposedly the best of the best in college baseball this year. So, I think as long as expectations remain as low as possible, NC State has a chance.
That's good. I mean,
just don't believe in us, and we'll be fine.
No, I watched a couple of the women's games, and you know what I do think? I think that the way that we treat women's sports is so BS.
I was having a conversation with my daughter the other day about this, because she was asking about if boys and girls play sports together, and stuff like that. And I was kind of explaining, like, no, they're typically separate, but there are instances where girls who have really wanted to play football or some other sports where the school only has a boys team have fought for their right to be able to do that, or at least have the right to try out. I was like, but usually by the time they get to the other levels, like, you don't see much of it at that point.
Yeah.
She's like, that seems dumb. And I was like, yeah, it's just like a lot of kind of silly, antiquated things that we're still dealing with.
Yeah, and I don't have a solve for that. I just think sometimes.
It's like women's soccer, right? Like, the product that they put on the field is just as enjoyable for me to watch as the men's game, honestly.
Right.
Like, I don't really see like that big of a difference in the aesthetic of the game, in the performance by the athletes. Like, it all seems fairly on par. Like,
until you get to the win column, right?
Well, yeah. No, and I meant not talking specifically about like the U.S. men's and women's, but yeah, I mean, like. Then you get to that point and you're like, okay, well, the women are clearly the superior team and providing a superior product, and yet in this supposedly capitalistic society, we're like, well, it's a women's team, so are we really that surprised? I don't know.
Yeah, my wife is watching this. She's really into World War II history, and she was watching a movie last night on Netflix about how the Germans had taken Jewish people from Spain as well. And first of all, I just can't watch movies like that. I just don't want to. And she had just the night before finished reading a book about something similar. And she goes, I can't believe that people are so evil. And I was like, well, I said something I should have said. But I'm like, well, like, you notice that most of the people that do some of these heinous things in history are predominantly white. Like when you think back to World War II, it's just like, I know that sounds kind of racist, but it's like, you're batting 1,000, guys. But anyway, speaking of sports and baseball, like it just makes me think of how we have to kind of think about, like, why do we not pay women fairly in sports? Why do we not give them the same? It's just a white male dominated society, and it just pisses me off.
No, I think, and that was, I didn't put it in probably as blunt a term or terms as you did when I was talking to my kid about it. But yeah, I mean, it was basically, I was like, like a bunch of people thought that this was the way that it needed to be for these reasons. And even though we've proven time and time again that a lot of these concepts that we had about the differences between men and women are really dumb, and not founded in any real reality, it seems silly that there's all these things that are still in the way, But,
yeah, I think that when it comes to sports especially, or actually anything, if you're able to produce said result, you should get paid the same amount of money. Now, granted, there's some, you may not have the audience for certain things, but I know, like, for example, there's, in this area, women's soccer is more popular than men's soccer. But that may not hold true in Oregon. So, but the baseline should be fair. And I understand that eyeballs also make a difference, but it shouldn't be that big of a gap. I just can't fathom it. It just blows my mind. So, like when I think about WNBA players that have to work part-time jobs, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. So,
well, and it seems almost like the more professional that the women's sport gets, the less interest there is in it. Like at the college level, there seems to be more interest in college women's basketball,
right?
Or even like gymnastics. At
right.
the young. But then it's like you get to a certain where it was like, oh, we don't really care about this anymore. Like,
yeah, I wish gymnastics was more mainstream. Like, you really only hear about certain meets at the collegiate level and the Olympics. And every now and then you'll get press on the World Gymnastics Championship, but that's few and far between. And we've had a lot of awesome gymnasts in our male and female throughout the years. They don't get the exposure.
Wrestling too. That's another one.
Yeah.
That I've. You're gonna roll your eyes, but NC State had a national champion at the heavyweight level, Nick Gwiazdowski. I would probably say it.
He probably went to Cary High also.
I think so. But he was one of the first guys that the new head coach there, Pat Papalizzo, brought in, and since then he's built just like this ridiculously good wrestling program that's been churning out ACC championships and competing at the national level, and so I've been following it a little bit more recently, and they've had several of the wrestlers have gone on to the Olympic trials and have had the opportunity to represent the U.S. I think Nick Gwiazdowski had gone to the Olympics at one point.
That's cool.
So.
Well, my oldest sons, they wrestled at Cary High, so I know that State's got a good wrestling program. So my beef with State isn't about State. It's just
me.
It's just you.
It's just me. I mean, I understand that. Like, I'm the intolerable NC State fan.
Yeah, it's annoying, and I have two sons that went to State.
That's the goal.
So it's like whenever I talk crap about State, my wife's quick to remind me. You had two sons that went to State. I'm like, yes. Your daughter's going to State. Yes.
State's a great school. State's a great school.
Yeah.
State's a great school. State's a great school.
What do we got next, man?
So we've done social media, we've talked sports and cooking. I guess
it's time for politics.
So, if you aren't aware, the G7 meeting was over the past week, and President Biden met
G7.
I know, right? And President Biden met with Vladimir Putin.
Putin.
Yo, Biden gave in my opinion, a masterclass on foreign policy in his speech, and I get a lot of it's not posturing. It's just kind of setting the stage for what the globe seems and deems as who's, are we on the same page? Can we kind of circumvent some of the issues that we're having? But it was refreshing to see that the other world leaders were looking at the representative of the United States as an equal and not a pansy. So I don't agree. I may not be a big fan of some of the things, for example, I don't know how I feel about Germany having oil from Russia, but at the same time, trying to dictate what Russia does with the Ukraine, right? There's a lot of duplicity, I think, in some of those issues, and hopefully those guys can figure some things out. Hopefully NATO starts to, not just give lip service to some of the things we need to do as a global community. So that's my big thing.
Yeah, you and I have talked a lot lately on here about how we've kind of stayed out of politics, and I've been finding that easier and easier to do lately,
right.
In large part because what they focus on, the things that are being focused on when it comes to politics in the news have been largely inconsequential, it seems.
Yeah.
And it's, again, I'm not really paying attention, so if I miss something big, I'm not trying to say that everything that's happened lately is inconsequential, just to be clear.
Right.
But I did see the videos, the side by side of Biden walking, down some pathway with the leaders and stuff like that from the other nations, and then cutting to 2017 when who was pushing his way to the front. And, I go here, and it is refreshing to see people don't look at it like, how did you get here?
Right.
Why am I having to deal with you right now? And that's where that's where I kind of was for the last 4 years, was just why do we have to deal with this? How did we get to a situation where we're actually having to put up with this crap right now?
Well, I think that we deserve everything we got when this country elected Donald Trump. I've come to that conclusion, and
even those of us that didn't vote for him.
Yeah, but we've been playing this. I think after President Obama got elected, we started to, as a society, and I wasn't all about President Obama's policies, to be fair, but as a society, we thought we reached this mountaintop that wasn't there, and that's a common theme and common statement by even Republicans right now. We're not a racist country. I mean, we had a black president. Yeah, but you did everything within your power to disrupt everything he was trying to do. And even so now, Mitch McConnell is playing this whole game of, we're just going to stop this whole, I can't do an impression because I really don't like the guy. I like him more than I like Donald Trump. And
I'm Mitch McConnell, and I don't want to do anything except for talk like a turtle.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, he literally is just, it should be criminal that he can actually publicly say as an elected official, I'm going to do everything within my power to not pass any bills this administration wants to pass. There's no representation of anybody that your constituents. Secondly, what's interesting is that Joe Manchin came back with a compromise on the on voting rights, and
because what they say when it comes to voting rights: compromise, compromise, compromise.
I think the Democrats are doing a big disservice to themselves. Actually, this is going to be a big political rant because I think a lot of things are just kind of like built up. The comment that President Obama made during his interview with Anderson Cooper is very true. That the Democrats are not aggressive about their goals. To paraphrase, they go back to the table just to be nice, and Republicans don't operate that way. Got it. Cool. The second part is the electorate. We can't stay focused on idiots like Ted Cruz, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, any one of them. We can't stay focused on them so much that we lose focus on what needs to happen. And I think that over the last 6 months, that's all we've done. Like we talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, we talk about, like Joe Manchin is this, it's great that he's got something he wants to do to say, okay, I'll work on this, but he's getting pressured from somebody. So,
whose ass did he have to kiss to get all this publicity?
I blame the media. I literally blame the media. Like, here, one thing I've been thinking about the last couple of days is, so this is my rant about the Democrats. I believe the insurrection, January 6th, is criminal. 21 congressmen said that they did not want to. 21 senators, I believe, did not want to give those officers the Congressional Medal of Freedom. I've watched that one of the officers that got attacked that day speak. I've seen him on CNN a few times. He went to go speak to one of these. I think his name is Slawwell or something from Georgia. Mm-hmm. Guy wouldn't even shake his hand.
Yeah,
he said that it was like a tourist. The guy that said that January 6th, if he didn't see the video, he would have thought it was just like a tourist group. No, I think he meant to say terrorist group, but
terrorist, tomato.
It starts with the T. And what was interesting is there's a picture of him like trying to barricade the door with a chair that day. So it just blows my mind. I don't think those people are powerful, and that's what I keep coming back to. They have influence, but they're not powerful. Like, there's no way on God's green earth that, and back to Joe Manchin, that 78% of the people in his state agree with H.R. 1, and he wants to vote against it. 78.
Plus Jennifer Lawrence.
Plus, yeah, because that's important.
I mean, Katniss Everdeen.
But I just think that we've put too much stock in these people.
But didn't you see that Stacey Abrams says that she could absolutely support the voting rights compromise?
Yeah,
so that means all black people are cool with it, right? Like, she speaks for all black people, right? I saw
that interview, and I was kind of thinking the same thing. I'm like, so we have to. Now, I understand the ability that Stacey Abrams has to organize with other people and get things to happen. Oh, thank you. You're so nice.
What did you get?
I got my adult beverage.
Oh.
So my life is good now. It's been a long week and it's only Thursday. Good Lord. Maybe we'll talk about that too. But or some of it. What was I saying? I understand that, so I don't want to take that away. But I just think that I don't need Stacey Abrams to Like, we shouldn't need Stacey Abrams' blessing to do the right thing.
Right. I mean, and in a lot of ways, right, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but it seems a pretty direct comparison. It's like 15, 20 years ago where it was, Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton, right? If whatever kind of side they were on, it was like, well, that must be where all black people stand. And it's...
Well, I think the problem is this whole progressive part of the party. Like, I hate...
Okay. No, like, I can understand that, but...
I think James Carville has got a very good point. Like, people are so enamored with, like, what he calls faculty lounge talk, right? Well, we want to... You know how we get pissed off when people we'd have a meeting for everybody just to spit out ideas and nobody did anything?
Yeah.
Remember how pissed I would get?
Yeah.
I would... Like, why are you wasting my time?
So his point is that that's where we are right now.
Yeah,
I mean, from a governmental standpoint, in terms of like passing legislation, I wholeheartedly agree. Like, we're all just, well, I think we should do this. Well, the rest of us don't think you should do that, so we're not going to do anything. Like,
yeah,
okay,
it's a waste of my time. Like, don't bother me with that. Like, I see that in our political system, and it's not to say that I don't. Here's what I'm starting to think. I think that although there was a good representation of our country in the G7, I hate to admit this, but the low blows that Putin makes about, you can't say this about Russia when this is going on in your country, he's not effing wrong, man.
No, he's not. It's, I mean, I go back to what conversations that we were having a year or two ago, around the former president, where it's like, you can't, or like the Black Lives Matter and all the protests and stuff, where it's like, you talk about, I want to go punch a Nazi in the face, and it's like, okay, but then you start moving down that slope or down that path where now the point is that, like, you don't have the moral high ground. Like, you've succumbed to this, and ultimately that's what I feel like a lot of us kind of need to maintain to some degree. Like we have to have enough of us that are still standing there saying, like, guys are wrong, and it's not that we're perfect, but, we understand where that line is, and we're not willing to cross that.
Yeah. There's a difference between right and wrong. And I think politicians are... Like, I watched Nancy Pelosi do an interview on this past Sunday or the Sunday before. And I understand her tone. I don't think that she should be as dismissive as she comes across. Like, if you are a public servant, number one, if you're in a position of leadership, you need to learn how to be able to talk to people. And I think a lot of times people forget that.
And that's... Sorry, go ahead.
And it just shows me that we have a lot of the wrong people in leadership. And it blows my mind.
That's what I mean, that's really what it boils down to. I mean, we have put so many of the wrong people in leadership, and we have allowed this system to be created that attracts that, ultimately, in a lot of ways. And it almost weeds out the good people, because you have to be a certain level of scummy or slimy or, whatever adjective you want to use in order to be able to survive in that. In order to deal with your personal life constantly being torn apart, having basically no real privacy. And ultimately, what I feel like you end up with... But they
always get... No, that's not true. Most of the people that feel like that, they get their hands caught in the cookie jar.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. I think usually what it is, when it comes to campaign time, right? And then...
That's why... Think about it. Nobody is... literally nobody in the Republican Party has had a good shot at Joe Biden. And that's what's amazing.
Yeah. And why, right? Because Joe Biden, over the years, has managed to maintain some level of moral high ground. Like, despite where you may not agree with him on his policy decisions, right? Like, he hasn't been out philandering, right? He's not, like he has been fairly open and honest just about what's gone on in his life and how that's affected him, which I think is what allows a lot of people to ultimately connect with him and say, like, he may not be the same person that I am. He doesn't have the exact same experiences, but we share something in common, right? Like, maybe we have a loss, or we have somebody that we know that, has dealt with drug addiction or whatever it may be, like, I mean, the man's been through a lot and done that while being in at least to some degree, the public eye. And you're absolutely right. Like, to this point, there's been nothing that the Republicans have ultimately been able to really saddle him with. And their attempts are laughable because they can't make up their mind. Is Joe Biden an incompetent puppet that's just the face of Kamala Harris? Or, is he this ruthless, leftist, progressive socialist who's going to sell us off to China? Like,
dude, it's so lame. Like, even the one, like, I personally, when he kind of got chippy at the end of his press conference with Caitlin Collins.
Yeah,
I actually thought he was right, because she did take something he said out of context, and I was like, I probably would have done the same thing, but I also would have done the same thing that he did before he got back on Air Force One, and publicly apologize. He said, hey, I shouldn't have been, he said, a wise guy. He probably said, I wouldn't have used that term, like, hey, that, my bad, but understand what I was trying to say. And then he made a very good point, like, they are kind of negative. And it's like, you guys are they're looking for something to be like an I gotcha, and he doesn't want to play that game with them. Well, and they don't get that no is no. Yeah.
And historically, right, that has been what has sold for them, right? That is the product that most people want, is that I gotcha moment. And it's why I think part of the reason that we're in this situation that we're in, because so much of what were kind of revered and distinguished news organizations for some time
garbage
are now, nothing more than tabloids, really. Yeah. I mean, that's what we're essentially left with. And I mean, that's why to some degree I'm just like, all right, cool. Like, if that's where we are with politics, then I'm not going to worry too much about it, because I don't think me paying attention ultimately is going to matter.
Well, that's a dangerous slope. And I do want to, speaking of Kamala Harris, I watched her Lester Holt interview. And the whole time I was thinking, man, she really is an attorney. Like, she wasn't really answering questions like she was going to incriminate herself. And then the slip up with I haven't been to Europe either. I was like, oh, God. You really said that. And I think it was because she was being pressed on the question.
Yeah.
The question was kind of unfounded for whatever reason. Her response was kind of ilky. And it reminded me of when she kept trying to take those bites out of Biden at the debate.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I'm like, yo, you gotta, if you're running for this office, let's not call the president. If you want to get this job, show me you have the ability to do the job.
Right. And then,
right now,
you're not seeing
I believe she can. Yeah, I believe she can grow into it. I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, I'm with you in that what I have seen so far, she's not there yet. And I think, look, we saw that last time, right? Like, there was no way in hell that guy was ready. And what we kept hearing was, well, give him time. Give him time. He'll grow into the role. He'll learn it. He'll put smart people around himself. Well, that only lasted until they disagreed with him. And so ultimately, like, that's not something where, I mean, I guess, on the other hand, people said the same thing about President Obama, right? Like, going at, like, well, he has very little experience. He's so young and yada, yada.
The young thing didn't bother me. It was experience.
Sure.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, I mean, and not that I'm like, hey, everything Obama did was cool. But,
right.
I mean, those were 8 okay years, right? Like, they weren't terrible.
I mean, like,
they were better than this last one.
That's what I'm saying. If the bookend is Trump, I mean, sure, they're freaking heaven. I will say
right.
I will say this: a lot of President Obama's issues were 30% him learning how to be the president and really building relationships, and 70% the a-holes in the Republican Party.
Say the racist Republican.
I mean, they tried to kill Obamacare for the third time now at the Supreme Court, and they said, go away. They dismissed the case. You have
Even
no right.
With all of their justices, right? Their justices.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, that was the whole point of the last administration.
Amy Coney Barrett?
Yeah.
This is my thing with her, and I said it before. If that's her pedigree, she'll be fine.
Right.
And I looked at a little bit of her rulings. I mean,
it was
impartial.
another. I mean, now look, I think there's a lot. Again, I don't have any issue with her. I have a bigger issue with the logic, right, that was used to put her into office.
Sure.
When we look at what had happened previously, right? Like, that's where you and I are sitting here going, okay, guys, you got it. But ultimately, we're like, it's not that she's not qualified. It's not that she may not make a great Supreme Court justice. But if I'm her, like, I would personally be like, that's not really how I want to go. On the Supreme Court. But
you prove,
is it
you
really
prove the haters
matter?
wrong.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, she recognizes that she was qualified. So, I mean,
it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and that's where it's like, look, we've got to get beyond and it's hard, like I really, really, really respect President Obama. Like, if I could ever talk to him and just ask him a few questions, it'd be like, hey, just give me some clarification on this. These were my hangups, and I always remember the same thing I learned when Bush left office, when he did a press conference when he got back to Texas. It was so genuine when he said, yeah, I made a lot of decisions. Not all of them were great, but they were the best I could do at the time. And I really had been in that situation too. I've made a lot of decisions, and some of them where I'm like, yeah, that keeps me up at night. When we worked at E Area, one question I would always ask people when I was given the opportunities, hey, what keeps you up at night? Because I can probably gauge what type of person and what type of leader you are by your answer. Because I know for me, like, I've fired people. There's a lot of things where I'm like, yeah, I didn't like that. I don't want to do that again. Like, I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to be backed into a corner by HR or legal to do something that I don't believe in. Because those are problems for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not a quiet guy when it comes down to that. Like, I'll do my job, but don't ask me to, never ask me to do anything immoral.
And that's why I have a hard time probably being a politician.
Yeah, I might. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're probably not going to do sex trafficking.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I mean, the bar is pretty low
these days. Yeah, like, I mean, sex trafficking. There's no reason to bar you from office or even sitting on the.
I just, that's what I'm saying. It's like we as a country cannot and should not try to be the benchmark for other countries.
Well, that too.
I
mean, for a long time now,
that.
Yeah, we've sat here and said basically, like, do as I say, not as I do, right? Like, this is how you should be. This is how you should be doing it, even though that's not how we do it. We expect you to be better than us, and
so I look at it this way: when the Cold War was a thing, right?
Yeah,
it was never about, for me, the way I looked at it. And I love political science. I think foreign policy is cool.
Nerd.
Well, yeah, but I also enjoy trying to understand human behavior, right? Because it makes me feel more comfortable when I understand where I'm at, right? Yeah. So the Cold War for me wasn't about the nuclear arms race. It was about two countries that are pretty much fledgling. So Russia, if you look at like economically where they were during the Cold War, they're an old country, but they were also a young country, right? If you look at the United States, historically, they're a young country. They're obviously younger than Russia or even old Russia. So they've amassed such power militarily in the world. How do you grow together? And so I think that was part of the strength of Reagan. That was part of the strength of George H. Bush, right? Of trying to figure out how do we like grow and like not get into a pissing contest that ends up with somebody pushing a red button. And that was the beauty of those conversations. Not that they solved anything, but it because Gorbachev, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I always say Gorbachev. I mean, he always pushed back. It wasn't like he was saying, yeah, you guys are great. No, he pushed back. And that's what I think is missing when it comes to the American quote-unquote exceptionalism. It's not true. We're so far off the rails on like how exceptional we are because in the last 15 years, all these things have come home to roost. We have racism. We have, and I'm not like saying communism is great. I'm saying like when you think about it,
no,
there's some serious shit that we haven't addressed.
Yeah, it's the way that you manage. I mean, and I know that communism and capitalism and stuff like it extends beyond just the money and the markets,
right.
But at the end of the day, like it's essentially an economic principle that you're kind of following, and so that's
it dictates your social like world order.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. It's not inherently like evil, right? Like there's communism itself is a great idea until you put it into practice because people suck. Yeah, I should say communism is a great idea.
Socialism,
right? Like
socialism is actually not that bad if you look at Scandinavia.
Yeah, when you can do it correctly, and you don't have a bunch of jerks who are going to ruin it for everybody else, right? But that's one of the things that we love to believe in America is that everybody else is a lazy jerk, and I'm the only hard worker out there. Me and the people that I know who are also hard workers, right?
Yeah, our that's no longer true. And I think the American dream, like in my history and how I look at it, it was a myth created in the late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah.
And it was only created because we had so much money. Because
what else were you going to do with it? But give some of it to the middle class.
Yeah.
And then they realized we don't have to do that. We could just keep it all. And Jeff Bezos
it wasn't even that they had so much money. It's just like, well, they had so much money because they made so much money, created new industry because of wars.
Right.
And that's it's a myth. And when you look at the entirety, like if you look at the entire generation from the 40s to like, I guess those are baby boomers, like their myth of work hard and you'll be fine has been true since the freaking 80s.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see that. I just saw like more obstacles. You didn't see. You're a millennial. Like you guys definitely didn't see that. I have kids that are Gen Z or whatever. Like they keep making about like my kids aren't seeing that. It's just like not a reality.
Right.
So that's all I'm saying. It's just like I hear you. I want it, but it's not about civility anymore. It's about, and I think President Biden said the best way. He was asked, "Do you trust Putin?" He said, "It's not about trust. It's about self-interest." I learned by watching him speak. He says so many things that would probably come out of my mouth, and that's probably why I like him more and more every time I listen to him talk.
But that was the whole idea behind mutually assured destruction, right? Back in the Cold War, was if if both of us could at the same time essentially wipe each other off the face of the planet, and neither of us really has an advantage in that way, then it doesn't behoove either of us to push the button, because we know that the other one is immediately going to retaliate. There is no, you can't, and that was where all the espionage and all the, like, the Star Wars, right? That's where a lot of that came from, because it almost necessitated it. It was like, well, we don't know how else to do it other than to try and disable whatever systems they have to either harm us or defend themselves. But I mean,
the reality is,
but that was all about self-interest. That wasn't about like, oh, we don't want to blow up the U.S.
But self-interest is actually a good motivator for a lot of people.
It's a great motivator.
Yeah, it's like I may not see eye to eye with somebody, but I also don't want to like shoot myself in the foot either, right? I mean,
think about it, businesses, right?
Right.
That is the basic transaction in business all the time. You get a bunch of people who don't give a crap about what it is that the business does, but you're going to give me a salary, so I'll figure out how to make this work, right? I'll learn whatever it is I need to learn about this product, and I'll go sell it, or I'll service it, or I'll do whatever it is. You also have people who find something that they're really passionate about, that they love, and they go off and they do it. Like, that's an option as well.
I actually created a whole program because I was really digging my job. I wanted to make it better, right?
Yep.
But the problem, but it's also there's a catch-22 in that. So the philosophy is great. Self-interest, sure. There's an unwritten contract in every relationship, and it's always quid pro quo. Like, even though Donald Trump doesn't believe that's a thing, it really is. And if he's really that good in business, he understands that.
Yeah.
Every contract he ever did, for the most part, was quid pro quo. Like, seriously. His problem was, and still is, reciprocating to the other person. So, like, my point being this. Look, it's not about, like, how do we push ourselves to the extreme? You have to be able to maintain normalcy and show continuous progress. And I think our political system is trying to push to an extreme, because the loud voices on both extremes, the left and the right, are just getting louder and louder. And it's becoming very, very apparent that nobody's really driving the car, if I'm being honest.
Is it a Tesla? So
when we crash, he's gonna be like, I told you. That's why I'm in Mars. Like,
so I know we didn't have this on the docket to talk about, but I have one more thing that I want to throw in here at the end, since we're kind of talking about it anyways.
Let's talk about technology.
So, have you seen the new commercials for Domino's and their self-driving pizza delivery vehicles?
God, no. What?
They're basically these stupid little robot things that go out and they pull up to your house and they notify you that it's there. And you walk out to the street and it opens up and you get your pizza and you take it inside, and then it zooms off to the next street. And on top of that,
first of all, who the hell's eating Domino's?
Like, I mean, it's better than Papa John's. Like, I don't.
No, Papa John's sauce is better than like all of them. It's the most legit.
Do we need to have? Sauce. I mean, like, you're from New York.
First of all, I don't like eating any of that garbage. But if I had to eat that garbage, actually that's not true, because their sauce is the best. It's like the most original sauce.
What?
So when you eat a pizza,
most
right?
Original. I don't understand what that
it tastes like. It tastes like a real freaking like sauce. Seriously.
I don't know. Like, I mean, Papa John's used to be the only pizza delivery that was near my house in Cary, and so I ate plenty of Papa John's growing up in college. But as soon as I realized Domino's was down there, like, I immediately switched to Domino's.
Domino's crust is garbage. First of all, when I was younger, I went to New York Pizza off of High House and 55.
Sure. Well, and then we were Johnny's Pizzas guys for a while.
And Johnny's Pizza that was my new spot.
That was legit.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So I don't eat garbage unless I have to eat garbage.
All right, but do we need to do like a top 5 garbage pizza places list at some point?
Let's go.
All right,
I can do that one all day.
Let's do it. All right. So number 5, Little Caesars.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, $5, right? I can walk in and get a pizza that's been sitting there in the oven for I don't even know how long, but it's
my list. I'm done. You pulled out Little Caesars. I'm done, yo. Like I got nothing. It's like all I'm gonna say is like Subway. That's all I got, yo.
You eat Subway pizza? What the hell is wrong with you?
I'm just saying.
Little Caesar claims to be like the most popular Detroit style pizza, and I'm like, okay,
but what's a Detroit pizza?
Right, exactly.
Yo, if you're listening to Detroit, no love lost, but like, yo, I've never heard of your pizza.
My dad's from Detroit, basically. I mean, St. Clair Shores, which is not like actual Detroit. But,
this guy said Little Caesar. It's like that's not even a freaking thing.
That is
if somebody ever said that to me, I'd be like, "What the hell?" It's like I get in a fight with a guy about like deep dish pizza.
You mean the bread lasagna?
Yeah, it's a casserole. It's like freaking.
It's like a shepherd's pie.
Yeah. So that's our list. That's
no,
top,
come on.
All right.
Okay, so that's 5. 4 would probably be. I mean, for me, 4 is probably Papa John's. I might even put Papa John's at 5. I know, but like the crust is garbage. Their crust tastes like cardboard.
Okay, 4 for me would be Hungry Howie's.
Okay, yeah. See, I like Hungry Howie's. They'd be higher.
I like they had a Philly cheesesteak that was actually pretty banging, like a stromboli.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
I had Hungry Howie's a couple of times.
Yeah, many a nights Hungry Howie's strombolis with like the Philly cheesesteak joint.
I do remember one time I placed an order online for Hungry Howie's to pick up, and I got to the store, and the girl was like, so it's going to be like an hour and 20 minutes. And she was like, so we're just going to... Like, it wasn't even an option. It wasn't even like, would you like to wait? Because I think she knew, like, I mean, anybody who's willing to wait an hour and 20 minutes for some Hungry Howie's pizza has some other stuff going on. So she was like, I'm not putting up with that tonight. We're just going to refund your order right now.
I used to go to the one on Hillsborough Street a lot. Yeah. And and also the one on Maynard in Cary when they used to have it there. But yeah. I don't miss that place.
No, me neither. All right.
That was like...
Go ahead.
That was my number 4.
That was your number 4, yeah. You can do number 3 first if you want.
Actually, I think Hungry Howie's is... Well, no.
It's
number
okay.
3.
You can change it. I mean,
number 3. Gosh. You go first.
All right, number 3, Jet's Pizza.
Dude,
we used to rock Jets all the time. Another Detroit-style pizza. I'm like, no. But after a while, that stuff got to be way too greasy. Like, that was the problem that I had with it.
That's a ball of grease.
But, yeah, like, I mean, every once in a while, like, that super thick crust and everything, it was pretty good. The square one.
It's not even a good slice.
No, I mean, it's not a slice. Like, that's the little rectangle
That's what
thing.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not a good slice because you're like, what? All right, so I'll give you that one.
So you agree? But Jets at number 3, or what's your
number
3?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah. Because I don't eat crappy pizza because like it's offensive to me.
Well, and I don't eat crappy pizza anymore because none of those places really carry vegan cheese options. So, all right, number 2. This is kind of a toss-up, but I'm gonna say Domino's. Domino's is my number 2.
Oh no.
So I know what your number one is. So what is your number two here? It's not Domino's because you hate Domino's.
Yeah.
Can you even think of another pizza place?
I would say it'd be Pizza Hut.
Okay.
Because I just don't. I think they skimp on ingredients all the time. Like, and I wish they wouldn't, because they have good pizzas when they do.
Yeah.
I have to eat freaking Pizza Hut because my wife likes Pizza Hut for whatever reason. I don't like Pizza Hut. Like, there's
but you're
nothing
still gonna
about
put it
pizza.
at number two.
Yeah, number one's Domino's for me.
Wait, so Papa John's isn't on your garbage list?
No, I would eat Papa John's before I eat any of the other ones. The sauce is amazing. And I haven't eaten Papa John's in a long time.
Just to be clear, number one is supposed to be the one that you like the best of the garbage pizzas.
I would eat of the garbage pizzas. If I had to eat a garbage pizza, it'd be Papa John's.
But you just said Domino's was your number one.
Oh, I need a new list. Can we do the top 6?
Yeah, why you just want to put Domino's and Pizza Hut together, or I mean, does Domino's go at number 6? Is that where it is? You don't like Domino's, right?
I don't know where Domino's falls in the list.
So it's not on your top 5. That's
I probably never eat that. I would never eat it.
So then you don't have to worry about it. Domino's was my number 2, right?
Yeah, you're doing so much better. Yeah.
No, I'm not doing better. I mean, this isn't a competition. There's not a
no.
winner
I'm
at
just
the
like
end of this.
I'm just saying. I don't know. Those are a lot of pizza joints I would never eat at. Just period.
All right. So number 1 for you, we know, is Papa John's because that is your favorite trash pizza joint.
Yeah, my favorite trash pizza.
My favorite would be Pizza Hut.
Ugh.
Right, but there's a very specific reason, right? When I was in South America, there was a Pizza Hut in the town that I lived in. And so, once a week, I would hit up the Pizza Hut because it tasted like home. So it was a lot like... And that's it, because every other Pizza Hut experience is terrible.
I swear to God, shut up. I don't want to hear your... All right, so I'm going to give you 2 stories, and if that's what we're calling number 1. I hate Starbucks for a couple reasons. My biggest reason is because I asked for a large coffee.
You mean a venti?
It's not what I...
Sir, I'm sorry, I can't place your order until you say the word venti. We're not allowed to say small, medium, or large here, nor am I allowed to pretend like I can actually translate those into our own sizes.
Yeah.
As somebody who spent 3+ years working at Starbucks.
That's why I hate Starbucks.
Yeah,
it
I
just
know.
pisses me off.
I mean, that's why everybody hates Starbucks for the most part.
I just want a large coffee. Can I get a large coffee? Let's move on.
Yeah, but I mean, you shouldn't be going to Starbucks for drip coffee in the first place because
I would never. I won't go to Starbucks for anything. They could melt, burn down for all I care. But when I went to Puerto Rico, the first time with my family, there was a Starbucks in the hotel.
Yeah,
the nicest people on the planet. It was a great experience. Every morning I would wake up a little bit earlier just to go to the freaking Starbucks in the hotel because it was so welcoming. Come back to the States. Yeah. I don't need you to correct me. I just want a freaking large coffee.
So that was one thing. What's the other thing?
When I lived in Europe, there's a place called Snappy's Burgers. It's in downtown Oslo. And right next to it was a 3-story McDonald's that had 22 registers per floor, which was bananas to see. It was amazing. But I had the best burger, till this day. I remember how good that burger was.
Wait, best McDonald's burger?
No.
Or best...
Snappy.
Oh, Snappy.
Snappy's was the best burger ever. I've ever
Period.
Ever.
Never had another burger
that was as good. Nope, never.
I've never even heard of Snappies, but I've also never been to Norway. So
yeah. So now, are they in business still? I don't know. Doesn't matter. But I remember that experience. So your emotional attachment to an experience,
plays a huge role.
Plays a huge role. Now, for me, Pizza Hut, it's about the flavor of the sauce. Like when I eat pizza, there are two things I care about: are the ingredients even on the pizza? Like every bite should have something on it. And secondly, how does the sauce taste?
See, that's why I started making my own pizzas at home.
Yeah,
because
and you probably do the same thing. You
I mean, like I had like when I was eating pepperoni, I was like the meat lovers. So much pepperoni, my oven would catch fire with the grease pile. Not really, but.
I'm just saying. Oh, that sounds.
No, I mean, this is a nice, like, little impromptu. I mean, look, you're wrong, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to be wrong.
I'm completely right.
You're not
Pizza
right.
Hut is like
Papa John's is
sauce.
a garbage institution.
Is it because he used the N-word?
No, it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, because I'll be honest. Like,
I mean, I love him for that.
What the fuck are we doing here?
I was like, watch what I'll say then. Get a rise out of Andre.
Damn. Good thing you're like 3 hours away because I'm about to whip that ass. Wow. Now I know. No, aside from that, like the pizza, like when that came out, I was like, dang, yo, I'm still going to have to order that pizza when I can.
I'm still going to order that pizza. I mean, look. You can separate the pizza from the artist, right? I mean, Papa John's, he's just an artist.
Actually, like,
just
dude,
like Michael Jackson,
they're like
and R. Kelly, and
so Pete Davidson said it best. I don't know if you saw it on SNL.
Which
he was like,
I don't know. You tell me what he said first, and I'll tell you if I heard it.
Oh, it's super hilarious. He's like, so R. Kelly gets arrested for, being creepy, whatever. He says it's kind of like the Catholic Church. The only difference is the music is better. So if you listen to an R. Kelly song, you just have to admit what a terrible person he is and donate money to charity. He goes, I've already donated like $300 on the Ignition remix alone. And I'm kind of like, that's actually a pretty interesting take on it. Like, even with the humor. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of true. Like something that's like Michael Jackson. Really? Like I knew Michael Jackson. There was something wrong with Michael Jackson. Like nobody wanted to believe it. Nobody. No, I'm like, dude, he says he lives in Neverland. Like, stop.
I mean, the guy obviously had some significant psychological issues that were going on. And it's unfortunate that because of his status and celebrity that was never anything that he was really able to get help with, because all the people that were around him were just like,
what about Matt Gaetz?
What about him? Was he
I
around Michael Jackson? Is that where he learned it from?
I think there's a level of hypocrisy when it comes to that stuff. If I'm being honest, like when I look at how we as not we like us, as a
we
society,
like me, you, Chris,
sure.
me, you individually,
it's let's talk about social media. You got that? Roll that bumper. Roll that.
We already
bumper.
did social media. You gonna make me do it again?
Social media.
So I think what it is for me, I think that we plugged into something that we don't know how to control, and it amplifies sometimes the right thing, a lot of times the wrong thing, right? So we have
more often than not.
Yeah. And so you look at the Matt Gaetz. You can't cancel a congressman, right? You can't force him,
unless he's a Democrat.
That's true.
But again, that's because they typically have some of moral high ground.
So my point being is like Michael Jackson. It's like people don't want to believe like the dirty of whatever happened.
Yeah,
and I'm like, all right, whatever. It's just really weird how we kind of, I don't know. I think social media is making our, I don't want to say moral compass, but I think it's changing how we react to terrible things. So last weekend, 36 people, is either last weekend or the weekend before, I lose count now. 36 people were either injured or killed in gun violence. The last social outrage to a death was a police interaction. On top of that, I just found out, like, watching the news, there's like 2 kids or 1 kid beaten up in Ocean City, Maryland. Right? Social media is actually starting to numb us to what actually should be a visceral reaction. And we don't talk about it. And it's like, I'm trying to get a list of all the cases I've seen on the news, from Ahmaud Arbery to George Floyd to I'm sure there's gonna be like 30, 40 more. And what is the actual thermometer of how people like feel with that? If you go down South Saunders Street in Raleigh, right, there's a lawn sign that says "Justice for Christina Matos." I've never heard of that case, but every time I drive into downtown Raleigh, I see that sign. I haven't had a chance to look for that case, but it's like, I'm thinking to myself, like, where's our local media picking these stories up? Why is it that some stories get amplified on social media and some don't? And where is the social push to make our freaking representatives, local, state, and federal, do something about it? I think social media is like, I'm all about, I think they should be held as publishers more so than just a platform.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that. Having been on the other side of that, I mean, I know what we had at E-Area was not technically a social media platform, but we described ourselves as a publisher, right? Like, right. We were a media publisher, and the types of things that we did are not too dissimilar in terms of how we kind of reviewed and rated, or determined what content got published, are not that dissimilar from what's being done on Facebook and Twitter and all these other places. Right. Like, ultimately, you are the ones who is deciding whether or not something is okay to be published by your standards that you set. Like, help me understand how that doesn't make you a publisher, right?
But we also try to skate the line there, too. And I say we, the company.
Yeah.
So whether it's racist or sexist comments, whether it was targeting certain demographics, I get the financial reason why you would do that. But I think that overall, if you're saying you're like a community for developers, then the community isn't all what you think it should look like. It's never going to be that way. I mean, go out your front door, right? Go to the grocery store.
I mean, it was one of the things when I first started working there, they would constantly, brag about the fact that their audience was 98 or 99% male, right?
Right.
Like, oh, it's just all guys here, It's just this is the dude zone. It's like, no, it's and that's, granted, the tech industry had been historically very male driven, but even like when I first started there, that had already started to change. And so their whole belief of what that market looked like and what their audience looked like was driven by a lot of old concepts and bad data. But
that was pretty good. I like that. So my question would be this, and I because I'm guilty of it also, right? As a company, you'll never survive unless you know who your true customer base is. The tricky part is your customer base is never who may give you money in that transaction. Somebody else always influenced that decision. And let me tell you why. The place I used to work, big Fortune 5, or probably Fortune 1, I don't know anymore. We knew the products that we sold were all influenced by one person in the household. Guess who it wasn't?
The man.
Right, exactly. There was I was listening, or just a report, and I listened to another report about it later on. When you think about like even car production. So car production, and this is like a very cursory view of it. The car it's a 2021 model was designed 5 years ago. They have so much data on like who buys whatever. For the last since 1992 was when I first followed the study. Every car has been designed for the woman female woman purchaser, because they've gained more disposable income like in the prior 10 years. And you can see that in like if you ever get in a car and say, well, why is this here? Why is this color? What? It's because they're not really. If you're a guy, they're not actually marketing to you.
Right.
And I just find that very interesting. So my point being this, it's like social media is doing the same thing, but it's very nefarious. It's super, super, super dirty. And it's like, I just don't see the point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you in that. I think if they were a little bit more above board with it, right? Like it would be a little bit more honest about how it is that they're operating, and what their true kind of incentives are or what their goals are, then I feel like it would be a different conversation. But where we're stuck right now is it's like you've got people who are, I mean, I look at like TikTok, right? Oh, new social media app. Everybody go and download it. Oh, turns out that app is just siphoning a whole bunch of data off of your phone and sending it off to some company in China. Like, whatever. That was most people's response, right?
What's the formula for a popular social media app?
I don't know. Otherwise, I would have built one.
So it's what's shown to be successful is social media in general. Forget the app. Has been how do you get a younger demographic?
Yeah,
because the younger demographic will always bring more users in 18 months. MySpace, Facebook.
Yeah, it's always
Twitter.
the younger adopters first, and then they get the older people into it.
The only really interesting thing is with Facebook and Twitter is that they have retained a pretty interesting base user like number. Now, granted, Facebook 1.3 billion, which is kind of huge.
But there's a lot of us. I say us because I think that base user is a lot of people in my age demographic where we were in college when Facebook was a college exclusive thing. And so there was a level of exclusivity to it when you first got the opportunity to be on it. And there was a level of secretness to it where it was like, oh, what's going on Facebook? You know, my parents aren't on there. My grandma, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, like not everybody sees.
They weren't on MySpace either.
No, but yeah, I mean, I was more Facebook oriented, I guess.
No, so what's interesting it's interesting when you say it's interesting. Like I wasn't on MySpace either. What's interesting when you say that is like Facebook's got this ad campaign about changing internet regulations. It's all a precursor to like trying to get around the U.S. avoiding GDPR. Like they've delayed it for 4 years now?
Yeah.
California adopted it. And like my barometer's always been once California adopts most rules and laws, the rest of the country kind of follows.
Yeah.
The privacy thing is coming out more so in Apple has got something that Mark Zuckerberg is super pissed off about.
I actually have been enjoying that little feature where it's like every time I load a new app or an app for the first time, it pops up and it's like, do you want this app to track information across multiple apps? And I'm like, no, I don't. Thanks for asking.
That's why I don't use apps. Like for Twitter on my phone, I just I go to their website and I download the PWA, Progressive Web App.
I feel like, again, right, part of it is there's a lack of understanding what it means to download the app. Right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, when we first kind of got app stores and that sort of thing, if I downloaded an app, my thought wasn't, well, just because I've downloaded this app now has access to a bunch of information on my phone.
Right.
Right? Like, those aren't the thoughts that first went through my head. Now, I'm always like, well, what does it want access to? Why does it need access to that? If there's a legitimate reason, I'm like, okay, like, I get that. Yeah, you got to,
my camera?
Instagram needs to access the camera so I can take pictures. Got it. Okay. But why?
What's interesting, I get that. I think the privacy thing is great, but the real commodity is going to be, it's always going to be data.
Yeah.
If I think of the most powerful and influential industry you can probably be in, like the next 20 years, it may be marketing and data scientists. And that's why, like, I'll see things come across my news feed about, data scientists and how marketing marries with data science and blah, blah, blah. They're not wrong.
No,
right?
But, I mean, I just, like, you're taking all the fun out of it.
Well, I understand. I look at marketing as, I have a bias in marketing. Like, I know that, when I worked at that place, there were a couple line items every month you paid for, marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple other line items that were just kind of consistent. You have to market to people because markets change. Marketing's not a bad thing.
No, I mean, as a former marketer, I'm not against marketing. I just think that where we are now, it's like there was a point where of diminishing returns, basically, on the data, right? Where I don't know if you want to call it an invasion or just a lack of privacy became so important, or not. The sense of privacy became so unimportant to the marketers and the people gathering the data. And it was all about the end result, right? Whatever I can learn about you, however I can get that information, is okay, because ultimately what I'm trying to do is get you to buy a product that I maybe believe in, but even then you probably don't.
But that's fair. But what if marketing was more simple, right? Like, I look at it in a very simplistic way. Because that was never my trade. It was actually a necessity more so than like something I was interested in.
Yeah.
You want somebody to buy, like, there's a YouTube video I saw it like years ago, and it was called "The Stickiness of a Double Cheeseburger." There's this chain in California. I don't remember what it was, but this guy he had like one restaurant, went to like 50 or 60, later on franchised it. The principle that he would always tell people was, we want people to, and I'm paraphrasing here, like, he would talk to customers, and what they told him was, we'll order a double cheeseburger all the time because there's that cheese in the wrapper. Like, they love that experience, right? And I'll be honest, I'm like, yeah, that's actually kind of true. There's some sandwiches where you're like, yeah, I ate the whole thing, but I was waiting for this. Like, I just want to get the cheese off the wrapper. And his point was, understand what your customers want when they come to experience your restaurant. I think I can translate that to, like, how I look at business. What do people want when they look at your good or service?
But that's where I think that's where I feel like in a lot of ways the digital age and marketing really lost its way, because they stopped asking the question. It stopped being, tell me what it is that you like, tell me what it is that you're going to order every time, or just having those conversations, right? And it became all about, well, how do I just secretly observe them so that they're not, telling me something like, well, we have to remove all bias. Like, I don't know. The whole thing seems so.
You want to hear? You want to see what's funny about that though? Like, I really think this is hilarious. What's the most popular fast food restaurant?
I would guess McDonald's.
What's your number 2?
Taco Bell?
No. Guess again.
Chick-fil-A.
There you go. It's in your top 5. I'm like, all right, if it's not in his top 5, then my theory.
I figured Chick-fil-A was more regional in the South. Well, I know that they've branched out more, but Southeast.
You know what's funny about Chick-fil-A? Like, if you ever drive past a Chick-fil-A, their drive-thru is packed.
Yeah.
Like, unreasonably, there are a lot of people. I was going through a shopping center here in my town. Dude, I wasn't even going to Chick-fil-A. I would never do that. Well, I don't eat meat, number 1. Number 2, I would never go to Chick-fil-A. And I'm in Beaver Creek Crossing, and there are cars waiting to go through their drive-thru on the main throughway.
Yeah.
I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, yo. They sell, and their customers believe, everything about what the company says they are. That is the magic of, like, enterprise and being an entrepreneur. Now, being slow, they have, they have the friendliest employees 99% of the time. Every customer believes that Chick-fil-A is Chick-fil-A.
Yes, and every Chick-fil-A is Chick-fil-A. It doesn't
Even
matter which one you go to.
Even when they get ran under the rails about their stance on LGBTQ rights.
Yep. People still wanted that fried chicken.
They're like, yo, I might have to, like, low-key. Can you imagine what that, so that whole experience, that whole like from A to B can happen for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
It's just that you have to do the work to show that's who your company is. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. Like,
no, we talked about it recently, right? About when we're talking about mission statements, you know, and like how something that is super simple that people actually understand, that's what's really important. Like, that's what's going to drive the success of your business, because if you don't understand what you want to do and how you want to do it, which is what your mission statement ultimately should tell you, then how on earth are you going to get other people to do that?
Right. I love mission statements because it was an eye-opener for me, right? But I look at it this way, and I try. I'm not very smart, so I try to do things simply, right? I have 3 rules in life, and when I veer off these 3 rules, I screw up my life. The questions I ask myself to stay within my rules are, does it make me a good husband? If the answer is no, I don't do it. I broke that rule. Does it make me a good father? If the answer is no, I don't do it. The answer is yes, I'm all on it. And does it make me a better friend and brother? If the answer is yes or no, like, those are my 3 rules. Everything else, it's like, nah, I'm good. And I have to always constantly remember that. When I break my rules, I'm screwed, right? The same thing applies to business. And it's, what are you trying to accomplish? If you're trying to be the best widget maker and sell at a good price and understand that 1 is bigger than 0, you're in good shape. Just sell a lot of 1s. You don't have to sell a lot of 10s, just sell a lot of 1s, right? And 1s can mean that maybe you do pay your employees a higher wage. Maybe you do do all these other things, but you're able to make sure that you get a 1 at the end of the day. Yeah. Your goal is to make a 1, not a 20 or 30 or 40 or 50.
Right, and if you do it the right way, ultimately you will probably be successful. Like that's because what ends up happening on the other side of it is you cut corners. You hire people that either aren't right for the company or that you're incapable of training because you don't know how it is that you want things done. And so it's funny that you bring up Chick-fil-A, because I had an experience at not Chick-fil-A recently that immediately made me think of Chick-fil-A. And it was going through the drive-thru, fast food restaurant, place the order, get to the end, anything else for you? Nope, that'll do it. All right, 541 at the first window. Great, thanks. Uh-huh. I'm like, I literally pulled away and went, my pleasure, because that is what they say every time you walk away at Chick-fil-A, right? And I know, but there's something about it. Because
you believe in Chick-fil-A.
Well, no, but because I also believe the people when they say it, like the way that they train their employees, I think that they get the employees to buy into the fact that this makes a difference, and it is that important to us that you say this during your conversations with customers so that they understand that we are here to serve them.
So I'll tell you this, like I don't believe that employees buy into anything. I believe that they believe in your mission of your organization. And once they stop believing, then they're gone. Like, hang it up. That's why I always ask the question, hey, new car smell? Right? Every new employee that we would interact with, I'm like, hey, new car smell? Because the minute, just to explain to anybody that's never heard me say this, when you buy a new car, like, you love the new smell, right? It can be a used car. You can get that smell in just about any car. It's new.
They literally make an air freshener that comes in new car smell.
Yeah, there's an emotional attachment to like how people feel about things that are new. The minute you have your new car and you eat in your car and you spill like ketchup or something like that in your car, you're gonna eat in your car again, right? Then your car becomes more of a tool than like your baby. Mm-hmm. And people look at jobs the same way, right? It's that how long can you prolong that feeling of it's new, it's fresh, it's exciting, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to interact with these people. If you can get an employee to do that for like 90 days, that should be the first target. And you're a baller if it's 180 days. That employee, and as long as you're doing your job and making sure you're, keeping your end of the agreement, they'll never leave.
So, I mean, it seems to me like we just need to figure out how to make a new job air freshener that companies can hang in the office, and everything will be good.
That's probably right. Yeah, I don't have. I do have a solve, and I've always. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. I'll end it with this. So, I am not a. I'm not Chris. Basically, like.
No, you're Andre.
Yeah. I have. I don't have that personality. The only reason I learned as a. Socially, I'm Chris. Professionally, I'm not Chris. Right? So in my personal life, like my friends and family, I got you 100%. Whatever you need, I can do it with like a nail in my foot. Professionally, I'm like, you're sick. You showed up though. Like, you got to work. like, why are we talking about this? Like,
you had to bring that up, didn't you?
But it's true, right?
Yeah.
But I learned a long time ago that two lessons. One, the first one was there was a guy that I used to work for when I was in high school that was later on a colleague who won an award for being like super awesome with employee retention. And he would always get an award for it. And one day I was like, can you tell me what you do? He goes, pretty simple.
Lock the doors.
I treat people. Yeah. He literally said, I treat people how I want to be treated. I'm like, okay. And I started that journey, right? Kind of difficult. I still had my bumps in the road. And it clicked one day when I was speaking to an HR partner, and we were talking about employee turnover, and they told me, it costs about like almost $6,000 to lose a person. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Like, let me explain to you why. The time you spent recruiting, the time you spent training, the time you spent, getting uniforms, whatever, or like equipping that person, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's kind of expensive. So my logical side finally had a chance to meet with my emotional side and say, yeah, don't be a dick. And 2, it's really expensive to be a dick.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So my message would be to anybody that's like running a business, if you want to keep your employees, if you want to like you don't start a company or an organization to only make money. Part of it's for relationships. Most people, I would say a vast majority of people that own companies and like small to large businesses care about their employees.
Yeah.
Don't be a dick. And if you lose people constantly, it costs you money. Sometimes you're going to lose people because like they've maxed out where they can grow with you.
Yeah.
I didn't say go. I said grow. Right? And I would always tell people when they got to that point, I'm like, hey, I'm happy for you. And if I didn't have an opportunity to help you grow, I'm glad you can grow somewhere else. And I really meant it. Right? But I rarely ever had people leave me because of like, I'm not making enough money.
Yeah. No, I mean,
so
we've talked about that a million times, right? Like, people don't stay somewhere because they're making enough money. People might take a job for more money, but ultimately, it's all about the job and whether or not you're satisfied in that. I mean, and yes, some people will make themselves miserable in a job because of financial requirements and whatnot, but is that really what you want to do? Like,
right.
I mean, ultimately, it's just one of those things. I keep coming back to it with you. It's like, if you have the right people and you treat people the right way, like, that's how you run a business. That's how you run a business successfully. When you cut those corners and break those rules, that's where you're going to find yourself in trouble.
Yep. So, gosh, we could fix the employment debate in this country pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think.
We just got to get more people listening to our podcast.
Yeah. So if you haven't listened to our podcast, or if you're listening now,
then how are you listening now?
I know. I just thought about that. You can always catch us on YouTube. Subscribe. We're on good Lord. YouTube, Pandora, TuneIn, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Did I forget anything? No, probably didn't. So I will tell you this. This is us transitioning from my dude moving to the beach. I'm like having I'm not
withdrawal?
happy. I'm happy about that. Yeah.
We had so just to we're wrapping up, but so I won't make it too long. But we did get the chance to have lunch last week. Was it last week? Yeah.
Yeah, it was last week.
Last Thursday. Which was nice. We got to meet up. You got to see your buddy in person because she was hanging out with me. But yeah, like, this is a weird transition for me. I have lived in the same house for the last 17 and a half, almost 18 years. Like, it would have been 18 years in August. And part of it was me deciding that it was just time, Like, I'd kind of felt like I've grown as much as I can in this house and in this location, and I'm ready to go grow somewhere else for a little while. And so
don't use my words against me.
Okay. I will.
Okay.
All the time. But yeah, it's one of those where it's like, when you work remote and you travel, all you really need is an airport and an internet connection. And so if you can live at the beach, why wouldn't you live at the beach?
That's fair. Yeah.
So I'm sorry that I'm not up there to keep you company and do all that good stuff.
Whatever. I'm okay.
We'll probably see more of each other now than we did before.
Yeah, because now I'm gonna like begrudgingly to be like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah. And I'll be like,
come
hey,
to the beach.
come to the beach.
I hate the beach, but I'm going to show up just to piss you off.
They got a lot of good vegan restaurants down here.
Just to show you that I can go to the beach. Nah, it's all good.
But it is like, I mean, this is a big time of transition for both of us, and
yeah,
you know, I mean, a lot of us really, like, I'm sure, you know, a lot of people are dealing with stuff, and
thanks COVID.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of nice. Like, I've been getting out there a little bit more lately, and not, I got, like, when I'm out with my kid, like, I usually wear a mask because she's got to wear one, and so I'm like, solidarity. But other than that, I'm like, I feel pretty good at this point. So
that's good. Well, I'm happy for you, right? And that's what's important. So we're super glad you joined us. And please, if you have any questions, comments, or if you just want us to stop talking about how crappy Mitch McConnell is,
I'm Mitch McConnell, and I like this.
I think Chris is he's in his zone today, but we're super glad you joined us. Sorry about Chris. I won't edit that out, but I'll bleep it. But we're super glad you joined us. Please, don't please. If you like it, hit us up. If you don't like it, hit us up. If you think we're awesome, hit us up. Just hit us up. Yeah. As always, I'm Andre.
And I'm Chris.
We'll talk to you next time.
I'm Mitch McConnell.